The smaller alien's head tilted slightly, its dark, reflective eyes glimmering as it processed her words. Retribution is irrelevant. Your kind does not possess the means to. A distant rumble interrupted its thought, followed by a low vibration that made the metallic table hum beneath Kara. The smaller alien stiffened, its fragile limbs twitching in agitation. What was that? The insectoid alien barked, its voice clicking angrily. Its limbs moved in a rapid flurry, activating a holographic display from a wrist-mounted device. Alien glyphs flashed across the projection, and Kara saw a hint of something akin to concern in its stiff posture. The smaller alien leaned closer to the display. Unidentified energy signature. It's targeting the ship. Kara's heart raced. Energy signature? Could it be a rescue? She didn't dare hope, but the alien's growing alarm suggested someone, or something, had taken an interest in her abduction. The insectoid alien hissed, its chitinous fingers tapping the device furiously. Humans cannot possess this technology. It must be a false reading. The smaller alien looked doubtful. You underestimate their ingenuity. Their kind is notorious for surprises. The insectoid snarled something in a language Kara couldn't understand, then turned and scuttled out of the room. The door sealed behind it, leaving Kara alone with the smaller alien. Its movements were less frantic, its gaze returning to her with what might have been curiosity. You do not know what is happening, do you? It asked, its tone softer now. Why don't you enlighten me? Kara replied coldly, testing the restraints on her wrists again. The metal bands didn't budge. The alien hesitated. Your species is more persistent than we anticipated. This attack is unexpected. Kara narrowed her eyes. If you think we'll just roll over and let you pick us apart, you've made a serious miscalculation. The alien didn't respond immediately. Instead, it moved closer, its thin limbs gliding almost soundlessly over the floor. It studied her for a moment before speaking. You misunderstand. Your kind's persistence is not just in your will to survive but in your unpredictability. It is fascinating. Glad to hear we're entertaining, Kara said dryly. Now, how about you let me go and we can call it even? The alien emitted a low, whirring sound that might have been laughter. You are bold. That is another trait your species is known for. The hum in the room deepened, followed by another vibration, stronger this time. Kara saw the alien glance toward the door, its body language betraying unease. Whatever was happening outside, it was escalating. This vessel is compromised, the alien muttered, almost to itself. It turned back to her, its black eyes narrowing. If I release you, what will you do? Kara's breath caught. Was it seriously considering freeing her? Depends. Are you going to keep me here for your twisted experiments? The alien's gaze remained unreadable, but after a moment, it reached for the control panel beside the table. A series of glyphs lit up under its touch, and the restraints around Kara's wrists and ankles released with a sharp hiss. She sat up, rubbing her wrists and watching the alien warily. Why are you helping me? The alien hesitated. The Tharnics see your kind as a resource. I see potential. If you survive this, perhaps we will meet again. Before Kara could reply, another explosion rocked the ship, nearly knocking her off the table. Alarms blared, the lights flickering as the alien straightened and gestured toward the door. Go. Quickly. Kara didn't need to be told twice. She darted toward the door, pausing only to glance back at the alien. If you're coming, you'd better move. The alien made no motion to follow, its focus already shifting to its wrist-mounted device. Kara hesitated for only a moment before stepping through the door and into the chaos beyond. The corridor was a labyrinth of flashing lights, alien symbols, and the shrill wail of alarms. Kara's boots clanged against the metallic floor as she sprinted, her mind racing. She had no map, no idea where she was going, and no clue what she'd find at the end of this nightmare. She turned a corner and skidded to a halt. Two insectoid aliens stood guard near a large set of doors, their weapons raised as they barked orders into comm units. They hadn't noticed her yet, but she knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. Her eyes darted around, searching for a way past them. A vent cover on the wall caught her attention. It was small, barely large enough to squeeze through, but it would have to do. She dropped to her knees, pried the cover off with her bare hands and crawled inside. The vent was cramped and dark, the metal walls pressing against her shoulders as she wriggled forward. The sounds of the ship grew muffled, replaced by the echoing clang of her movements. Sweat trickled down her face, but she kept going, her heart pounding with every inch she gained. She reached an intersection in the vents and paused to catch her breath. A faint voice echoed through the walls, its tone urgent. She couldn't make out the words, but it sounded human. Hope surged in her chest. "Hello? Can you hear me?" she called, her voice low but insistent. The voice didn't reply. Kara frowned, her fingers brushing the vent wall as she strained to listen. The sound seemed to be coming from below. She glanced down and saw a faint seam in the metal, a hatch. She pushed against it and to her surprise, it popped open with ease. The room below was empty, filled with strange, glowing machinery and a single console that hummed softly. Kara dropped down, her boots landing with a thud. She moved cautiously to the console, her eyes scanning its alien interface. The symbols were incomprehensible, but the layout was oddly familiar. A central display, input panels, and what looked like a communication relay. She hesitated for only a moment before tapping the screen. A distorted voice crackled through the console. "Is UNSC Helios 9? If you can hear this, respond." Kara's breath caught. It was Darius. Somehow, the team back at the mining outpost had managed to establish contact. "This is Kara," she said, her voice shaking with relief. "I'm on an alien vessel." The console cut off, its screen flashing red. Kara slammed her fist against the panel, but it was no use. The connection was gone. "Damn it," she muttered, turning away from the console. She needed to find another way to contact Helios 9, and fast. As she moved toward the door, it slid open with a hiss. A tall, insectoid alien stood in the doorway, its weapon raised. Kara froze, her mind racing for a plan. Before the alien could fire, the smaller, hunched alien from earlier appeared behind it. It moved with startling speed, its thin limbs striking with precision. The insectoid alien crumpled to the floor, its weapon clattering uselessly beside it. The smaller alien turned to Kara. "You are more resourceful than I expected. Come. There is little time." Kara stared at it, her mind reeling. "What are you?" "Survive now." Questions later, the alien snapped, motioning for her to follow. Kara didn't argue. She grabbed the fallen weapon and followed the alien into the chaos, her determination burning brighter than ever. The pale blue sphere of Earth hung in the blackness of space like a fragile jewel, its beauty belying the fury brewing below. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the UNSC Resolute, staring at the live feed of Earth's surface displayed on the vast holographic screen before him. His steely gray eyes were unflinching, his jaw set in grim determination. "Admiral, incoming message from Outpost Helios 9, the comms officer announced." "Put it through," Kane ordered, his voice calm but edged with impatience. The holographic feed shifted, replaced by the worried face of Commander Darius Lennox. Static crackled around the edges of the transmission, but his voice came through clear enough. "Admiral Kane, we've confirmed it. Kara Sloan was taken by an unidentified alien vessel. We picked up fragments of her distress signal before it was jammed." The bridge fell silent. Kara's abduction wasn't just an isolated incident, it was an act of war. "What do we know about the attackers?" Kane asked, his tone cold and measured. Darius shook his head. "Not much, sir. The ship's design doesn't match anything in our database. It's advanced, far beyond our capabilities." Kane's lips pressed into a thin line. Humanity had come far since uniting under the banner of the United Nations Space Command, but this was a challenge they hadn't anticipated. Still, retreat was not an option. "Dispatch a recovery team to Helios 9, Kane commanded. "We'll analyze the signal remnants and track that vessel." "Understood, sir." "What about Kara?" Darius asked, his voice tight with concern. "We'll get her back," Kane said firmly. "And we'll make whoever took her regret the day they crossed humanity." The command center deep within UNSC headquarters was a hive of activity. Technicians pored over data streams, while analysts cross-referenced every known alien species and starship configuration. In the center of the room, a massive holographic map of the solar system displayed potential trajectories for the alien vessel. Dr. Elena Torres, a leading astrophysicist, stood beside Kane, her dark curls tied back and her sharp eyes scanning the data. "Admiral, we've pinpointed the most likely route the ship took. It's heading toward an uncharted sector beyond the Kuiper Belt." Kane folded his arms. "What do we have in that sector?" "Nothing," Torres admitted. "No colonies, no stations, not even a long-range probe. It's a dead zone." "Not anymore," Kane muttered. "Prepare a task force. I want 3 Resolute-class battlecruisers armed and ready to depart within 12 hours. Torres raised an eyebrow. 3? That's a significant deployment. Kane turned to face her, his expression unyielding. "This isn't just about Kara Sloan. If they're bold enough to abduct one of ours, what's stopping them from targeting Earth next?" We need to send a message. 12 hours later, the UNSC Resolute, Vanguard, and Eclipse launched from Earth's orbital shipyards, their sleek, gray hulls bristling with weapons. Each battlecruiser was equipped with humanity's finest technology: quantum disruptors, kinetic railguns, and advanced AI systems capable of coordinating entire fleets. On board the Resolute, Kane stood in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays. The images of his senior officers hovered around the central table, their faces reflecting the tension of the mission. "We'll approach the uncharted sector using a staggered formation," Kane explained, pointing to the map. "The Resolute will lead the way with the Vanguard and Eclipse flanking at a distance. Our primary objective is to locate the alien vessel and retrieve Kara Sloan. Secondary objective: gather intel on the enemy." "And if they resist?" asked Captain Andrea Holt of the Eclipse. Kane's eyes hardened. "Then we remind them what happens when you provoke humanity." The officers nodded, their expressions grim but resolute. In the uncharted sector, the alien vessel drifted through the void like a predator in its element. Inside, Kara and her unexpected ally moved cautiously through the labyrinthine corridors. The smaller alien, who had identified itself as Mir, moved with fluid precision, its delicate limbs navigating the alien ship's control panels as if born to the task. "Where are we going?" Kara whispered, clutching the alien weapon she had scavenged earlier. It felt heavy and unfamiliar in her hands, but she kept it ready. Mir didn't look back. "To the power core. If we can disrupt its systems, it may force the ship to drop out of hyperspace." "And then what?" Kara asked, her voice edged with frustration. "We'll still be in the middle of nowhere." Mir paused, turning its reflective black eyes toward her. "Your people are more resourceful than you think. If they are pursuing this vessel, they will find us." Kara wanted to argue, to demand more answers, but another tremor rocked the ship, cutting her off. Mir's antennae twitched and it turned back to the panel. "Hurry." As the Resolute task force entered the uncharted sector, their sensors lit up with activity. Lieutenant Sarah Monroe, the lead tactical officer aboard the Resolute, called out the readings. "Admiral, we're detecting an energy signature consistent with the alien vessel. It's approximately 2 million kilometers away. Bring us into range," Kane ordered. "And prepare to engage." The fleet accelerated, their engines glowing like distant stars as they closed the gap. Kane watched the tactical display, his jaw clenched. The alien ship was enormous, far larger than the Resolute. Its sleek, black hull absorbed radar and sensor scans, making it difficult to track. "This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the United Nations Space Command," he said, his voice booming over the comms. "To the unidentified vessel. You have taken one of our own. Return her immediately or face the consequences." There was no reply. Instead, the alien ship's energy readings spiked, and a swarm of smaller craft detached from its hull, moving with frightening speed. "Enemy fighters incoming," Monroe shouted. "Launch interceptors," Kane ordered. "All hands prepare for battle." Inside the alien ship, Kara and Mir reached the power core. It pulsed with a strange, organic rhythm, tendrils of blue energy snaking across the walls. Mir began manipulating a nearby console, its movements frantic. "What are you doing?" Kara demanded. "Overloading the containment field," Mir replied. "It will destabilize the ship's propulsion systems." Kara frowned. "Won't that also kill us?" Mir paused, glancing at her. "It is a calculated risk." Before Kara could protest, the core's glow intensified, and the entire ship shuddered violently. Mir grabbed her arm, pulling her toward an access hatch. "Now we run." Outside, the battle was chaos. The Resolute and its sister ships unleashed torrents of firepower, their weapons carving through the alien fighters. The alien vessel retaliated, its energy weapons slicing through the void with terrifying precision. "Shields at 60%. Monroe called out as the ship rocked under another impact. Kane gripped the edge of the command table. "Focus fire on their engines. We need to disable that ship." The Resolute's railguns fired in unison, their projectiles slamming into the alien vessel. Sparks erupted along its hull, and for the first time Kane saw it falter. Inside the ship, Kara and Mir raced through the corridors as explosions tore through the walls around them. They reached an escape pod, and Mir gestured for Kara to enter. "What about you?" she asked, her voice tight. "I will remain," Mir said simply. "You are the priority." Kara hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." The pod's hatch sealed, and Kara felt a lurch as it launched into space. She watched through the viewport as the alien vessel began to fracture, its once imposing form now a crumbling ruin. Her comm unit crackled to life. This is the Resolute. Identify yourself. This is Kara Sloan, she replied, tears of relief streaming down her face. I'm coming home. The bridge of the UNSC Resolute buzzed with controlled chaos as Admiral Marcus Kane stared at the tactical display. The alien vessel had been heavily damaged but remained operational, its fractured hull still absorbing radar and optical scans like a black hole. Debris from destroyed fighters littered the space between the Resolute task force and their target. Admiral, we've recovered the escape pod, Lieutenant Sarah Monroe announced, her voice steady despite the tension. Kara Sloan is aboard. A murmur rippled through the bridge. Kane nodded, his expression softening for a fleeting moment. Good. Get her to medical and have her debriefed. We need everything she knows. Monroe hesitated. Admiral, the alien vessel is powering its weapons again. They're preparing for another attack. Kane's jaw tightened. Then we don't give them the chance. Order all ships to target their core systems. Let's finish this. Kara Sloan stumbled out of the escape pod, her legs unsteady but her determination burning bright. 2 UNSC medics rushed to her side, guiding her toward the Resolute's medical bay, but she stopped short, waving them off. I'm fine, she said, her voice hoarse. I need to speak to the Admiral. Ma'am, you need, one of the medics began, but Kara cut him off. There's no time. Take me to him. Now. The medics exchanged glances, then reluctantly led her toward the bridge. As she walked, Kara's mind raced. The alien ship wasn't just a vessel, it was part of something far larger. She'd seen glimpses of their network, their empire. This was just the beginning. Kane turned as the bridge doors slid open, revealing Kara. She looked battered but resolute, her blue eyes blazing with urgency. The murmurs on the bridge quieted as the crew turned to look at her. Sloan, Kane said, stepping forward. It's good to have you back. There's no time for pleasantries, Admiral, Kara replied, her voice sharp. That ship isn't just a research vessel. It's part of an empire. A big one. Kane frowned. What do you mean? They call themselves the Tharnics, Kara explained, glancing at the tactical display. They're not just experimenting on humans, they're doing it to dozens of species. They've been abducting people for years, maybe centuries. And they're planning something. Something massive. Kane exchanged a look with Monroe. Why target humanity now? Because we're a threat, Kara said bluntly. They've been monitoring us, watching our progress. They think we're evolving too quickly, technologically and biologically. They want to figure out why, and they're willing to dissect us to get the answers. A tense silence filled the room. Kane's gaze returned to the tactical display, where the alien ship was slowly regaining its composure. Then we send them a message, he said. Monroe, status on the fleet? Resolute and Vanguard are fully operational, Monroe replied. Eclipse has taken moderate damage, but their weapons are still functional. Kane nodded. Prepare for a coordinated strike. Target their weapon systems first, then their engines. We don't leave survivors. Wait, Kara interjected. You can't destroy that ship yet? Kane turned to her, his expression questioning. Why not? They have data, information on their empire, their experiments, and their plans. If you destroy that ship, we lose any chance of understanding what we're up against. Kane considered her words, his fingers brushing his chin. What do you suggest? Board it, Kara said. Take their systems intact. I know their layout, I can guide a team. Kane hesitated. It was a risky proposition, but Kara's argument was sound. Fine, he said at last. But you're staying here. I won't risk losing you again. Kara opened her mouth to protest, but the Admiral's steely gaze silenced her. Understood, she muttered reluctantly. The boarding party launched from the Vanguard, their sleek transport ships cutting through the debris-strewn void. Each carried a squad of UNSC Marines, their armor gleaming under the faint starlight. Kara watched the operation unfold from the Resolute's observation deck, her hands gripping the railing. The alien ship loomed ahead, its fractured hull glowing faintly with energy. As the transports approached, the Tharnics responded. Automated turrets emerged from hidden ports, spewing blue energy bolts. The Marines evaded skillfully, their ships weaving through the barrage. One transport took a glancing hit, its hull sparking, but the rest made it to the target. Magnetic clamps secured them to the alien vessel's surface, and the squads breached the hull with precision charges. Inside the alien ship, the Marines moved swiftly, their boots thudding against the floor as they cleared room after room. Captain Elias Grant, the mission leader, barked orders over the comms. Team Alpha, secure the power core. Team Bravo, head to the data hub. We're extracting everything we can. The corridors were dimly lit, the walls pulsing with an eerie blue light. Alien glyphs lined the surfaces, and the air was thick with an acrid, metallic smell. The Marines moved cautiously, their weapons raised. Suddenly, the lights flickered and the ship seemed to groan. Shadows shifted along the walls, and then the Tharnics emerged. They moved with insectal grace, their chitinous bodies glinting as they attacked. The Marines opened fire, their weapons lighting up the darkness with sharp flashes. The Tharnics retaliated with energy weapons of their own, their beams slicing through the air. "Hold the line," Grant shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Alpha, report." "This is Alpha," came a voice over the comms. "We've reached the power core. It's heavily shielded, but we're working on it." "Bravo, what's your status?" "We're at the data hub," another voice replied. "Starting the extraction now." On the Resolute, Kara and Kane monitored the operation in tense silence. The holographic display showed the Marines' positions, along with the rapidly increasing number of hostile contacts. "They're getting overwhelmed," Kane muttered, his fists clenching. "They can handle it," Kara said, her voice firm. "They have to." In the data hub, Team Bravo worked frantically to extract the Tharnics files. Specialist Liam Hart, the team's tech expert, tapped furiously at his datapad, bypassing the alien encryption. Lines of alien text scrolled across his screen, and a green progress bar inched forward. Come on, Hart muttered. "Just a little longer?" The sound of gunfire echoed down the corridor, growing louder. Hart glanced up, his heart pounding. "We've got company." The Marines formed a defensive line, their rifles trained on the entrance. The Tharnics charged, their claws clicking against the floor as they advanced. The room erupted into chaos, bullets and energy beams flying in every direction. "Extraction complete," Hart shouted, grabbing the storage device. "Let's move." The Marines fought their way back to the transports, the corridors now a battleground. Explosions rocked the ship as Team Alpha detonated charges near the power core, destabilizing the vessel. "Everyone fall back," Grant ordered. "This ship's not gonna hold." The Marines boarded the transports just as the alien vessel began to collapse, its hull splintering under the strain. The transports detached and sped away, leaving the Tharnic ship to implode in a blinding burst of light. On the Resolute, cheers erupted as the Marines returned. Kara let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Kane turned to her, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "You were right," he said. "We've got the data. Now let's see what we're dealing with." Kara nodded, her gaze hardening. "This was just the beginning, Admiral. The Tharnics won't stop here." "Neither will we," Kane replied. "This is their first lesson. Humanity doesn't back down." The briefing room aboard the UNSC Resolute was bathed in the soft glow of holographic displays, casting pale blue light across the faces of the officers seated around the table. In the center of the room, a three-dimensional projection of a Tharnic ship rotated slowly, annotated with newly deciphered alien text. Kara Sloan stood at the head of the table alongside Admiral Kane, her face drawn but resolute. Dr. Elena Torres, the astrophysicist leading the data decryption efforts, leaned over her console. "The data we recovered from the Tharnic's vessel is staggering," she began, her voice tinged with awe and unease. "It confirms what Kara told us. The Tharnics are running a galactic operation, abducting and experimenting on countless species, including humans." The holographic display shifted, showing schematics of alien facilities and gruesome medical experiments. Kara clenched her fists as she recognized some of the chambers she had seen firsthand. "But there's more," Torres continued. "The Tharnics aren't acting alone. Their empire is part of a coalition, an alliance of species working together for mutual domination." Murmurs rippled through the room. Admiral Kane raised a hand, silencing them. "Do we know the names of their allies?" "Not yet," Torres admitted. "The data is heavily encrypted, and their language structure is unlike anything we've encountered. We're making progress, but it'll take time." "We don't have time," Kane said firmly. "The Tharnics know we've struck back. They'll respond, and when they do, we need to be ready." The bridge of the Resolute was a hive of activity as the crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. Long-range sensors scanned the uncharted sector, searching for any sign of Tharnic's reinforcements. The tension was palpable. Everyone knew that humanity's bold retaliation had painted a target on their backs. Kara stood near the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the stars. The weight of her experiences pressed heavily on her shoulders, but there was no room for hesitation. Humanity was counting on her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a faint chime from the comm station. Lieutenant Monroe turned in her seat, her face etched with confusion. Admiral, we're receiving an encrypted signal. From where? Kane asked, stepping closer. Monroe hesitated. Unknown origin. It's not human. The room fell silent. Kane's eyes narrowed. Play it? The signal crackled to life, a series of clicks and tones that gradually resolved into a synthetic voice. Human fleet, this is the Zerthine Accord. Your actions have drawn our attention. A hush settled over the bridge as everyone exchanged uneasy glances. The Zerthine were a name whispered in the darker corners of the galaxy, an advanced but enigmatic species that rarely interfered with other civilizations. What's your purpose, Zerthine? Kane asked, his voice calm but wary. We have been monitoring the Tharnics for centuries, the voice replied. Their actions threaten the balance of the galaxy. Your conflict with them has accelerated events. We wish to offer assistance. Kane frowned. Why now? Why not intervene earlier? The Tharnics were manageable, the Zerthine said. But your species has disrupted the status quo. Humanity's rapid ascent has made you a target, and a potential ally. Hours later, in the war room, the holographic projection of a Zerthine emissary shimmered into view. The figure was tall and willowy, with elongated limbs and a head adorned with faintly glowing frills. Its voice was smooth, almost melodic as it addressed the gathered officers. We have observed your species with great interest, the emissary said. Your resilience and adaptability are unique among the younger races. The Tharnics fear what you might become, and they are correct to do so. They've given us plenty of reasons to fear them too, Kane said. What's your offer? We can provide intelligence, the emissary replied. Locations of Tharnics facilities, troop movements, technological insights. In return, we ask for cooperation. Humanity must join us in opposing the Tharnics and their coalition. Kara leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. What's the catch? The Zerthine's frills shifted, a motion that might have been amusement. Your species is unpredictable. This makes you valuable, but also dangerous. Our alliance will be contingent on your ability to follow our guidance. Kane bristled. We don't take orders from anyone. Then you will face the Tharnics alone, the emissary said simply. And you will not survive. The room fell silent. Finally Kane spoke. We'll consider your terms. In the meantime, share what you know about the nearest Tharnics targets. The emissary inclined its head. As you wish. The next target was a Tharnics research outpost hidden within a dense asteroid field. The Zerthine provided detailed schematics, revealing the outpost's vulnerabilities. It was heavily fortified, with automated defenses and a garrison of Tharnic soldiers, but its position made it an ideal target for a surgical strike. We'll use the asteroid field for cover, Kane said during the mission briefing. The Resolute will draw their attention while a strike team infiltrates the outpost. Our objective is to retrieve their research data and disable their operations. Kara stood among the Marines, her presence a stark reminder of what was at stake. She had insisted on joining the strike team, and after a heated argument, Kane had reluctantly agreed. You're risking your life, Kane had said. Are you sure this is what you want? I'm not sitting on the sidelines while they keep doing this, Kara had replied, her voice firm. I know what they're capable of. And I know how to stop them. The strike team's shuttle weaved through the asteroid field, its engines humming softly as it maneuvered between the massive rocks. Inside, Kara and the Marines readied their gear, their expressions grim but focused. Remember, said Captain Grant, who led the team. In and out. Minimal engagement. Stick to the plan. The shuttle docked with the outpost's exterior, and the Marines breached the airlock with practiced efficiency. The interior was dimly lit, the walls lined with the same eerie glyphs Kara had seen before. They moved silently through the corridors, their weapons at the ready. The tension was suffocating, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the facility. Control room up ahead. Grant whispered, gesturing for the team to fan out. Kara's heart pounded as they entered the room. Alien consoles glowed faintly, displaying streams of Tharnics data. Hart, the tech specialist, moved to the largest console and began extracting the files. This is it, Hart muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. They've got files on every species they've targeted. Even a few we've never seen before. Just get the data, Grant said, his eyes scanning the room. Suddenly the lights flickered and an alarm blared. Kara's stomach dropped. They know we're here. The sound of skittering claws echoed down the corridor, growing louder by the second. The Tharnics were coming. Defensive positions. Grant shouted. Hart, how much longer? 2 minutes. Hart called back, his voice tense. Make it 1. Kara snapped, raising her weapon. The Tharnix soldiers poured into the room, their energy weapons blazing. The Marines fired back, the confined space erupting into chaos. Kara ducked behind a console, returning fire as blue energy beams scorched the air around her. "Heart status," Grant shouted. "Almost there." Hart replied, his voice frantic. Kara gritted her teeth, her pulse hammering in her ears. The Tharnix were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. She spotted one of them attempting to flank the team and fired, the shot striking true. "Got it?" Hart yelled, holding up the data drive. "We're done. Fall back," Grant ordered. The team retreated, fighting their way through the corridors as alarms blared and reinforcements closed in. Explosions rocked the facility as the Marines planted charges along the way, their detonations shaking the walls. The shuttle was waiting when they reached the airlock, its engines ready to fire. The Marines piled in, and the shuttle peeled away just as the charges detonated, reducing the outpost to a cloud of debris. Back aboard the Resolute, the team was met with cheers. Kara collapsed into a chair, exhausted but victorious. The data they had recovered was priceless, offering humanity a glimpse into the vast network of Tharnix operations. Kane stood over the holographic display, his expression grim but determined. "The Tharnix thought they could intimidate us. They thought wrong. We'll use this information to strike back. And this time, we'll make sure they remember who they're dealing with." Kara nodded, her resolve hardening. "This is just the beginning. They took one of us, Admiral. Now we're taking everything from them." The Zerthine emissary's words still echoed in Admiral Kane's mind as he paced the bridge of the UNSC Resolute. Humanity's bold strike on the Tharnix outpost had been a resounding success, but the intelligence they'd recovered painted a grim picture. The Tharnix Empire wasn't just a singular threat, it was the vanguard of a coalition bent on dominating the galaxy. Worse, Earth's retaliation had escalated them from a potential nuisance to a prime target. "Admiral, decryption of the data is 72% complete," Dr. Torres reported from her station. "What we've uncovered so far is disturbing." "Let's hear it," Kane said, his tone measured. Torres brought up a holographic display, showing a sprawling network of interconnected systems. "This isn't just a military coalition. The Tharnix and their allies have a fully integrated empire spanning hundreds of star systems. Their operations include resource exploitation, genetic experimentation, and outright conquest. They've subjugated dozens of species, turning some into soldiers and others into experiments." Kara, standing nearby, clenched her fists. "I've seen what they do to their captives. We can't let that happen to anyone else." Kane nodded grimly. "What else?" Torres hesitated, then zoomed in on one particular segment of the network. "We found references to something called the Dominion Directive. It's a coordinated effort to neutralize species deemed a threat to the Coalition's supremacy. Humanity has officially been added to that list." The bridge fell silent. The implications were clear. Earth was now in the crosshairs of an interstellar alliance with resources and power far beyond their own. "Do we know where they'll strike first?" Kane asked. Torres shook her head. "Not yet. But we did uncover a key Tharnix communications hub. It's located on a moon orbiting a gas giant in the Ilyara system. If we can take it out, we'll cripple their ability to coordinate their forces, at least temporarily." Kane turned to Kara. "What's your take?" "It's risky," Kara admitted. "But if we can pull it off, it'll buy us time to prepare. The Tharnix rely on their coordination. Disrupt that and we force them to react on our terms?" Kane nodded, his decision made. "Then we strike. Monroe, prepare the fleet. We leave for Ilyara in 6 hours." The journey to the Ilyara system was tense, the fleet moving under strict silent running protocols to avoid detection. The Resolute was accompanied by 2 support ships, the Vanguard and the Eclipse, their crews well aware of the stakes. The Tharnix would not let a strike on their communications hub go unanswered. In the war room, the strike plan unfolded. The holographic display showed the gas giant and its moon, the latter surrounded by orbital defenses and patrolling ships. "Our primary objective is the communications hub," Kane explained to the gathered officers. "We'll use a diversionary attack to draw their forces away while a strike team infiltrates the facility." He turned to Kara. "You'll lead the infiltration team. You've been inside their ships. You know how they operate?" Kara nodded, her face set with determination. "We'll get it done." As the fleet approached the Ilyara system, the gas giant loomed ahead, its swirling clouds of orange and white casting an eerie glow. The moon, smaller but no less menacing, was a hive of Tharnix activity. Orbital stations bristled with weaponry, and squadrons of alien fighters patrolled the surrounding space. Enemy ships are moving into formation, Monroe reported from the bridge. They've spotted us. Good, Kane said. Launch the diversionary teams and hold the line. Sloan, your team is clear to deploy. In the shuttle bay, Kara suited up alongside her strike team. Captain Grant, leading the Marines, gave her a nod. Ready to make some noise? Let's make it count, Kara replied, loading her weapon. The team boarded the shuttle, the hum of its engines vibrating through the deck as it launched into the void. The diversion worked as planned. The Resolute and its support ships engaged the Tharnix forces head-on, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Explosions rocked the battlefield as human and alien vessels clashed, the sheer ferocity of the battle drawing the Tharnix's attention away from the moon. Kara's shuttle slipped through the chaos, navigating past debris and stray energy blasts. As they approached the moon, its surface came into view, an expanse of jagged terrain dotted with alien structures, the largest of which was the communications hub. Landing zone ahead, Grant said, his voice steady despite the tension. The shuttle touched down on a ridge overlooking the facility. The team disembarked quickly, moving in silence as they descended toward the target. Kara's heart pounded in her chest, but her focus remained razor-sharp. There was no room for fear. The facility was heavily guarded, Tharnix soldiers patrolling the perimeter and automated turrets scanning the area. Kara and Grant led the team to a vantage point, studying the defenses. Turrets first, Kara whispered. Then we move on the main entrance. Grant nodded, signaling for the team's sniper to take position. A faint hiss broke the silence as the sniper fired, the turret exploding in a burst of sparks. The Marines moved quickly, their weapons silenced as they took out the remaining defenses. They reached the main entrance and Kara hacked the control panel, her fingers flying over the alien glyphs. The door slid open with a low hiss and the team slipped inside. The interior of the facility was a maze of corridors and chambers, the air thick with the hum of alien machinery. The team moved methodically, clearing rooms and marking their path as they went. Kara's mind raced as she recalled the layout she had seen in the recovered data, guiding the team toward the central control room. We're close, she said quietly. Stay sharp. They rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of Tharnix soldiers. The aliens reacted instantly, their weapons blazing. The corridor erupted into chaos as the Marines returned fire, the confined space amplifying the sound of battle. Kara dove behind a console, her pulse hammering. She fired over the edge, taking down one of the Tharnix, but more kept coming. The Marines held their ground, their training and discipline giving them the edge despite the odds. Control rooms ahead. Grant shouted over the comms. Push through. Kara led the charge, her weapon cutting down another Tharnix as the team broke through the enemy line. They reached the control room, sealing the door behind them as more Tharnix soldiers closed in. Hart immediately got to work, his datapad connected to the alien consoles. Give me 2 minutes to upload the virus, he said, his voice strained. You've got one, Grant replied, his weapon trained on the door. The Tharnix began pounding on the sealed door, their weapons carving glowing scars into the metal. Kara glanced at Hart, then back at the door. How's it coming? Almost there, Hart muttered, sweat dripping down his forehead. The door buckled, and the first Tharnix soldier forced its way through. Kara fired, the alien collapsing in a heap, but more followed. Done? Hart shouted, pulling the datapad free. Let's move. The team fought their way back through the facility, their retreat punctuated by explosions as the virus spread through the Tharnix systems, overloading their power grid. By the time they reached the shuttle, the entire facility was engulfed in flames. Back aboard the Resolute, the team was greeted with relief and applause. The communications hub was destroyed, and the Tharnix forces in the Ilyara system were in disarray. Kane stood in the war room, watching as the tactical display updated with the latest intel. This will buy us time, he said. But the Tharnix won't let this go unanswered. Kara stepped forward, her face resolute. Then we hit them again. And again. Until they realize humanity isn't going to back down. Kane nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. You're damn right we won't. The galaxy was vast, its stars countless, and for the first time in millennia, many of its civilizations turned their eyes toward a small blue planet circling an unremarkable star. The Tharnix, once considered unassailable, had been struck a blow that rippled across the cosmos. Their coalition had underestimated humanity, and now whispers of Earth's defiance traveled from system to system. In the war room aboard the UNSC Resolute, Admiral Marcus Kane stood before a holographic projection of the galaxy. Dozens of star systems glowed red, marking Tharnix-controlled territories. Scattered among them were blue markers, representing potential allies, species previously enslaved or oppressed by the Tharnics and their coalition. Dr. Elena Torres stepped forward, gesturing at the map. The destruction of the superweapon has destabilized the Tharnics' command structure. Our intelligence suggests that several of their vassal species are questioning their loyalty. Kara Sloan, standing nearby, crossed her arms. Questioning isn't enough. If we're going to win this, we need them to act. Torres nodded. Agreed. We've already identified 3 species that could become valuable allies: the Razari, the Kael'tran, and the Silith. All of them have suffered under the Tharnics, but they'll need more than words to join us. Kane studied the map in silence, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke. Then we give them proof. We show them that humanity isn't just fighting for itself, we're fighting for everyone the Tharnics have oppressed. And we make it clear that we won't stop until their empire is nothing but ashes. Later, in the observation deck, Kara stood alone, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath the ship. The scars of the recent battle were still fresh, debris from the conflict shimmering faintly in the sunlight. But Earth stood strong, and so did its people. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Mir, the alien who had saved her life aboard the Tharnics vessel. Mir's delicate limbs moved with a quiet grace, its dark, reflective eyes fixed on the planet below. Your species is relentless, Mir said, its voice a soft hum. Is that a compliment? Kara asked, a wry smile tugging at her lips. Mir's antennae twitched. It is an observation. The Tharnics believed they could break you as they have broken so many others. They were wrong. Kara agreed. But this isn't over. No, Mir said. It is only beginning. In the depths of Tharnics-controlled space, a council of shadowy figures convened. The room was vast and dark, lit only by the faint glow of alien glyphs etched into the walls. At the center of the chamber stood the Tharnics' High Overlord, its insectoid form towering over the others. This affront cannot go unanswered, the Overlord hissed, its voice resonating with fury. The humans have disrupted the balance of power. Their defiance threatens everything we have built. Another figure, smaller but equally menacing, stepped forward. Their actions have emboldened others. Reports of uprisings are spreading. The Kael'tran have already begun open rebellion. The Overlord's eyes narrowed. Then we must remind the galaxy of the cost of defiance. Deploy the fleet. Crush these uprisings before they spread. And the humans? The smaller figure asked. The Overlord's mandibles clicked in agitation. The humans will learn what it means to provoke the Dominion. Their planet will burn. Back on the Resolute, Kara and Kane stood side by side watching the stars. The victory against the Tharnics had been monumental, but both knew it was only the first step in a much larger conflict. They're coming, Kara said quietly. They are, Kane replied. But so are we. Kara turned to him, her eyes blazing with determination. Then let's make sure they never forget what happens when they come for humanity. Kane nodded. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for something bigger. For freedom, for justice, for every species they've tried to enslave. As the Resolute prepared to jump into hyperspace, its engines glowing with power, Kara felt a sense of purpose unlike any she'd known before. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now the fight was theirs to lead. The silence of deep space was shattered by the hum of hundreds of vessels gathering above Earth's orbital plane. The UNSC Resolute floated at the center of humanity's largest fleet, its sleek gray hull bristling with weapons and gleaming under the faint light of the sun. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge, arms crossed as he studied the holographic display of the system. Red markers blinked ominously, Tharnic ships, an overwhelming number closing in from multiple vectors. This is it, Kane said, his voice low but steady. The Tharnics have committed their forces. They think this will be the end of us. Let's prove them wrong, Kara Sloan said, standing beside him. Her gaze was locked on the display, her expression a mix of determination and defiance. Dr. Elena Torres, positioned near the sensor station, looked up. Admiral, their fleet is larger than our projections. They've brought over 300 ships. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. Kane's jaw tightened. Numbers aren't everything. We've outmaneuvered them before and we'll do it again. Lieutenant Monroe turned from her station. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting a massive energy spike. It's off the charts. What kind of energy? Kane asked, his voice sharp. Torres interjected, her voice grave. It's a superweapon. The Tharnics are deploying something capable of destroying entire planets. A chill settled over the room. Kara's hands curled into fists. They're targeting Earth. The superweapon was a monstrosity, an enormous structure at the heart of the Tharnix fleet. Its central core glowed with a pulsating blue light, tendrils of energy arcing outward like lightning. The Tharnix had designed it not only as a weapon of destruction but as a symbol of their dominance. "They're sending a message," Taurus said, her voice grim. "They want to show the galaxy what happens to anyone who defies them." "Well, they've underestimated us," Kane replied. "Again?" The fleet gathered, humanity's ships forming a tight defensive perimeter around Earth. Interceptors and corvettes patrolled the outer layers, while the larger battlecruisers held formation closer to the planet. Kane addressed the fleet over the comms. "This is Admiral Kane. The Tharnix think they can intimidate us. They think they can wipe us out with their numbers and their technology. But they don't understand who they're dealing with. We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for our future, for every life on Earth, and for every species they've oppressed. Today we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." The fleet responded with a resounding, unified cheer. Humanity's resolve burned brighter than ever. As the Tharnix fleet entered Earth's outer defenses, the battle erupted in a storm of fire and fury. Railguns fired kinetic slugs that tore through enemy hulls, while energy weapons lit up the void like artificial stars. Fighter squadrons clashed in chaotic dogfights, the space around Earth becoming a deadly labyrinth of explosions and debris. The Resolute led the charge, its powerful railguns hammering the Tharnix front lines. Kane stood firm on the bridge, issuing orders with precision. "Target their carriers. Break their formation." Kara watched the tactical display intently, her heart pounding. Every ship lost was another blow to humanity's chances, but the fleet fought with unparalleled tenacity. "Admiral, the superweapon is powering up," Taurus called out. "They'll be in firing range in 5 minutes? Time to hit it where it hurts," Kane said. "Monroe, status of the strike team?" "Ready to deploy," she replied. Kara suited up in the shuttle bay, flanked by Captain Grant and his Marines. The strike team's mission was simple in theory but nearly suicidal in execution. Infiltrate the Tharnix superweapon and disable it before it could fire. Grant clapped her on the shoulder. "You ready for this?" Kara gave a tight nod. "We don't have a choice." The shuttle launched under heavy fire, weaving through the chaos of the battlefield. Tharnix fighters swarmed, but the team's escort ships provided cover, their weapons cutting a path to the superweapon. The shuttle docked with the structure, and the Marines breached the airlock with practiced precision. Inside, the Tharnix were waiting. The corridors were narrow, the air thick with the acrid tang of alien machinery. The team moved quickly, taking out hostiles with ruthless efficiency. "The core is 3 levels down," Kara said, consulting the schematics. "Follow me." The closer they got to the core, the fiercer the resistance became. The Tharnix seemed to pour out of every corner, their weapons blazing. The Marines held their ground, but the toll was heavy. Explosions rocked the structure as stray shots hit volatile equipment. "We're running out of time," Grant shouted as they reached the final chamber. The core loomed before them, a massive, pulsating sphere of energy surrounded by intricate alien machinery. Kara stared at it, her mind racing. "Hart, can you overload it?" Hart, the team's tech specialist, grimaced. "Maybe, but it's gonna blow this whole place to hell." "Do it," Kara said without hesitation. "We'll figure out how to get out later." Hart moved to the control panel, his hands a blur as he hacked into the system. The core's glow intensified and a low, ominous hum filled the chamber. "Charges are set," Hart yelled. "We've got 3 minutes to evac." The team turned to leave, but more Tharnix swarmed into the chamber, blocking their path. Kara raised her weapon, her determination burning brighter than her fear. "Hold them off." The Marines fought with everything they had, their weapons lighting up the chamber in a deadly staccato rhythm. One by one they pushed their way back toward the airlock, dragging their wounded and covering each other with relentless precision. The shuttle detached just as the superweapon's core reached critical mass. Kara watched through the viewport as the structure imploded, the shockwave rippling outward and tearing through the Tharnix fleet. Cheers erupted on the comms as humanity's fleet capitalized on the chaos, driving the remaining Tharnix ships into retreat. On the bridge of the Resolute, Kane allowed himself a rare smile. "We did it." The victory was hard-won, but it was a turning point. The destruction of the superweapon sent a clear message to the Tharnix and their allies. Humanity would not be broken. As the fleet regrouped and the injured were tended to, Earth's leaders prepared for the next phase of the war. Kara stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The battle was over, but the fight was far from finished. The galaxy now knew what humanity was capable of, and so did she. Admiral Kane joined her, his presence quiet but commanding. You did good out there, Sloane. So did we, Kara replied. She glanced at him. What's next? Kane's expression hardened. We take the fight to them. No more waiting, no more reacting. If the Tharnics want a war, we'll give them one, and we'll make sure they regret ever coming after us.